Hi everybody, Joe Cioffi here on this Tuesday, the 22nd of May, and we are at 6 o'clock Eastern Time. We've got a lot of things to talk about today, including some current weather and some severe weather, and we're also going to take a look at the tropics because that is going to have some implications on the weather over parts of the eastern U.S., particularly the southeast and then across the Gulf states and Florida as we go through the weekend and probably through a good chunk of next week, the way things are looking. But first things first, I just want you to take a look over to the left here, and we have the Storm Prediction Center's forecast, and the blue boxes are the severe thunderstorm watches that are up at the moment, covering most of northern Virginia into southern Maryland. And there is a line of storms there that is moving eastward. They seem to be firing up as the evening hours work their way through. And then there's a second watch box that is up in Ohio and the western half of Pennsylvania. And you can see the larger area of marginal risk on either side. Also, by the way, I want to point out for a little later on, as they move into the late afternoon and evening hours in the northern Rockies and in the northern plains and parts of the central plains, also seeing marginal risk of severe weather there, marginal risk of weather down in West Texas and in eastern New Mexico, and a general area of thunderstorms indicated through all the Rockies. And of course, you've got this general area of thunderstorms from the middle Mississippi Valley south to the Gulf Coast and all the way east to the eastern seaboard. And the showers and storms that are breaking out across the south are not all that organized, but it's in response to the tropical air and the trough that we've been talking about that extends down from the central Gulf states into the Gulf of Mexico and in the northwestern Caribbean. Now, with respect to the current radar, we'll give you a view here for the northeast anyway, and we could take a look at some of the thunderstorms that are moving through where we have the severe thunderstorm watch up. And let me just upgrade this, update this radar really fast. And you can see this line here that is developing south of Baltimore to about Washington, D.C., and then on southward from there. Probably see some cells heading into the Richmond area before too long. To the north and east of that, we've had some rain in the cooler air and the wind off the ocean. That rain is now moving out to the east, getting ready to exit Long Island and southern New England as it moves away. And then we just have one little last batch of showers that you can see on the northwestern side here, moving through northwestern PA, western New York, and into eastern Ohio. Now, that's where the weather front is, and those showers are likely to fall apart before they get to my neck of the woods. So after that, weather conditions are going to turn quite nice here for the next 4 days. We haven't really strung together 4 nice days of weather in a long, long time. And that's going to take us into at least Saturday. As far as the holiday weekend is concerned, we are pretty sure that Saturday is going to be a good day, a warm day, and a summery day. Might see temperatures well up into the 80s to near 90 in parts of New Jersey and down into southeastern Pennsylvania, and we'll have 80s just about everywhere else. Would be a beach day, except for the fact that the ocean water temperatures are still in the low to mid 50s, but it certainly will be a nice day to sit out at the shore. After that, things become problematic. So let's go now to this weather system in the tropics that we've been talking about for the last several days. You can see the moisture field that extends down into the northwestern Caribbean is pretty extensive. I'll bring it up a little bit wider here. There is a weak low center that is east of the Yucatan Peninsula, but it is just that. It is weak. A very weak low-level circulation there, but we're seeing a lot of disturbed weather, a lot of showers and thunderstorms that are evident from the northwestern Caribbean Sea across Cuba, then moving across Florida into the southeastern part of the U.S. And this is going to be a moisture field and a moisture feed that is going to be there for quite a while, and it will pretty much saturate Florida, the southeast, back maybe even into the central Gulf Coast, regardless of whether we get a system that develops or not. We could wind up seeing some kind of low develop into a tropical depression or maybe a weak tropical storm, but I don't think it's important. What is, I think, most important is that the trough that is going to be in place in the Gulf states down into the Gulf of Mexico and into the Northwest Caribbean is going to hang around for quite a while. So this is going to probably mean for extensive rainfalls that will occur across the southeast, Florida, back over maybe as far west as westernmost Louisiana. And we're talking, you know, some pretty sizable rainfall amounts. We'll look at some of what the models are doing. The European is extremely bullish on rainfall amounts over the next 10 days. So that would take us out to June 1st. So it's going to be very, very busy indeed. So why don't we bring up the paint box here and we can draw a few things. And let's, whoops, somehow I had the paint box. Now I lost the paint box. And should come up now. Try it one more time. And there we go. So what I've brought up is the GFS. This is the 72-hour forecast surface map for Friday afternoon. And what we can see, at least as far as the surface features are concerned, you've got your high that is sitting off the east coast, and it is a east-west, basically flat high. It doesn't build all the way up to, say, southern New England. It's just kind of this east-west wedge here, right in there. And then you've got the east-southeast flow underneath it, coming out of the Atlantic and across the Caribbean into the Florida Straits. You can see that isobar there. And then we have the lower pressures, of course. As you start to go further south, you're getting to lower and lower pressure here. Just kind of circling the 10-12 isobar. Right in here someplace, there's probably going to be some kind of surface low that will, we already see evidence of a weak surface low. It probably will be one that will attempt to develop near the Yucatan Peninsula toward the end of the week. And then after that, there's still a lot of debate as to, you know, which way, where is this going to go? You've got the GFS that seems to want to turn it to the northeast. You've got the European model, which seems to want to just, and the NAM too, seems to want to take it more north-northwest toward the Louisiana-Mississippi Gulf Coast. Maybe the answer is a compromise somewhere in between. I don't know, but the big deal here, I think, is going to be the rain. Even if it winds up getting, you know, where you develop this into a weak tropical cyclone of some kind, wind is not going to be a problem here. It's the rain, I think, that that unless you were to wind up with something of greater intensity, which I don't think you're going to see, but it's the rain that I think is going to be the big deal front and center. Now, I want to show you as far as what conditions are in the upper atmosphere with respect to all this. And we're going to bring up the paint box. I hope I had the other one up to the top. If I didn't, I apologize. We'll try this again here. So here we have the upper air. I'm looking at here the levels. This is really describing the wind shear that we're seeing in the upper levels of the atmosphere. You can see the trough pretty well in here, and I'll draw it in for you. Do it in this darker red color. There's your upper trough right in there, and this is also for Friday afternoon. You have some pretty strong, you know, wind shear evident here when you look at the area that's in the darker orange here, right in there. This is all very, very strong upper air winds, wind shear of 50 knots or higher. Then you've got 50 knots or higher on the west side of the trough, but right in the middle of it, in between all of this, you've got an area. There is some wind shear here going on, but it's not unreasonably strong. So I think there's room for something to try to develop when the surface low comes off the Yucatan Peninsula and finds its way northward into the Gulf of Mexico. I think you're going to have that conditions are going to be somewhat favorable for some organization as we go through the weekend. Whether it's going to bring it anything beyond just a surface low, where do you develop a center tight enough to produce a little core of gusty winds? I don't know, but we are going to see this be a big precip producer. That I think is for sure. I'm going to leave the paint box up. Let me just bring up another map here. I just I hope you guys did, that first map I did. I hope I had it front and center. If I didn't, somebody just let me know when I had the surface map up, if you were able to see it. I hopefully did not have it hidden behind the other boxes. So one of the issues of having so many boxes and wanting to do all different kinds of stuff, it gets a little confusing even for me. So why don't let me bring up next, I want to show you the rainfall. We'll go out as far as we can with respect to rainfall. Now, I want you to bear something in mind here. This is the GFS. It's only through Sunday, so there's going to be more to go with respect to total rainfall here. But here we go. So here's the rainfall map. You should be able to see it there. Good. Okay, so notice one of the things that this GFS run does is probably keeps trying to take the surface low further east. So without even looking at it yet, I can just tell you from the precip field, and you can see how it's kind of arced in this fashion. All right, so your surface low is probably shown to move to the northeast, unlike the European model, where it was taking the low more northward. The GFS keeps wanting to bring this in somewhere on the west coast of Florida between Tampa and Naples. So let's split the difference and just say, Port Charlotte, for example. And then the rain area is pretty extensive as well. We'll take those features off, but at least through Sunday afternoon, we've got a fairly impressive area of 6 inches or more of rain being shown for parts of southeast Florida. Lesser amounts as you go to the north, but we also have, some 2 to 4 inch max areas being indicated as well for areas in North Florida, and then through parts of Georgia and Alabama. General 2-inch rainfall amounts go up into South Carolina and then back over into southern Mississippi. Now, some of this is going to be obviously some thunderstorm activity that we're going to see for tomorrow and for Thursday and for Friday. So this is all cumulative. It's not all coming down in about 24 hours time, which is certainly a good thing. But we are going to see more and more of this as we go through the weekend and into next week. I do have it out a little bit further, so we're out to Monday. I'm going to bring up the surface map, and we'll see where this goes. And it's very interesting as I'm looking at this. The GFS again wants to take some kind of surface low here, and let's copy this. Now, again, this is this model, and it's not all of the models, but here it is. Early Sunday morning, showing a low sitting off the east coast of Florida, which is, pretty far to the east. I want to bring you the European view, which is a little different. Trying to maneuver all these maps all at once. I'm doing the best I can, folks, so just bear with me. Here's the European for Sunday morning. And you'll notice it's in a much different place. The low is basically right over New Orleans. So the European is taking this pretty much straight north or north-northwest. The GFS is taking this more this way on up to the northeast. Now, as far as the weather goes, with respect to the GFS, that track would have implications for the Memorial Sunday and into Monday in the Memorial Day weekend, further north up into the Mid-Atlantic states, while the European would have implications further west into Louisiana and points west and extending that area of rain westward. Now, the difference is, in terms of the two models, this is a little tough to figure to some degree, but I think the upper air is going to kind of set it straight here. And it really has to do with the structure of the upper low and how the models see it and the orientation. This is the GFS, and notice how the GFS has this kind of east-west sort of an egg laying on its side, this east-west upper low. This would, you've got this upper air low here. Now, if the surface low decides that it's not going to go straight north and become vertically stacked over the upper low, it may want to just kind of stay more on the edge of the flow and run more toward the northeast. That is the reason why the GFS is doing what it's doing. The European, on the other hand, is different with its structure of the upper low. And this makes a huge difference, obviously, in the outcome if you're going to have this look instead, which is this north-south oriented cutoff low. Here it is right in here, okay? There's your upper low, and the trough is basically north-south, so the surface low is going to want to do something like this, want to gravitate toward the upper low and toward the Louisiana coast. Much different than what the GFS has. So this, we have to work out which model has the more correct look. I have to say that, my past experience would suggest that the Europeans look probably makes a little more sense. The GFS's look seems a bit odd to me. By the way, here's the upper high off the east coast, just east of the Bahamas at this point. And you can see the upper flow goes up to about North Carolina and then turns from west to east. So the tropical moisture is going to make it only so far north before it's going to stop. Does it make it, up into Virginia, the northern edge of it? I think quite possibly. Does it make it much further north than that? I don't know. And I think that's the big question to resolve with respect to the holiday weekend. So at this point, let me bring up the model in itself, and we'll see where it's going with all this. Excuse me. And we'll bring that to the top, and we will interact. So here we are at the present time. Now, when you see all this green, it's not raining geographically in every one of those spots. That's how much in terms of heavy rainfall we're talking about. And then it moves on out. It's not a real reflection of what the radar is supposed to look like. But here we have the next couple of days with this big high coming into the northeast and mid-Atlantic states with warm, dry air. It's going to be beautiful weather here for the next few days, right into Saturday. And then as we move into the weekend, here comes that tropical low starting to come on the scene. There's a cold front that is pushing down into upstate New York and New England that's going to try and drop southward. And there's your tropical system, quote unquote, off the east coast of Florida on this run of the GFS. And you can see that the GFS tries to bring that tropical moisture further north and also shows some overrunning rain with the stalled front over east of the New Jersey coast, and this would mean for some rain or showers later Sunday night into Monday, and eventually just tries to lift that moisture northward. I don't know if that is a reasonable solution to all this. Again, the upper air structure on the GFS is completely different from what it is on the European. The Canadian model, which overblows the depth of the storm, I'll show you that, of the system. I find that the Canadian model's idea from earlier today of really having a wrapped up strong tropical storm or even a minimal hurricane seems a bit far-fetched to me. And typical of what the Canadian likes to do, but even the Canadian wants to be more to the left. We can look at the German model, just to, trying to get at least some sense of of model continuity. And the Icon model does have this surface low further to the west, and you can see it here as it kind of lifts around. Looks like it gets it to a fairly moderate tropical storm as far as winds are concerned, but it does produce a whole lot of rain for the Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama Gulf Coast. Florida, if this is correct, by the way, if we start to shift the axis here a little bit further to the west, it may shift the easternmost bands of moisture further west into the Gulf and maybe off of Florida. We'll see about that. It's hard to know whether that is the case or not, given the circumstances here, but notice that it just kind of sits there. And by the way, the European does have a similar notion here where it just sort of sits that low down in the Gulf states, and this is where it could become really problematic. The European, in its long-range preset maps, which you can see, is producing some pretty hefty rainfalls of 10 inches or more. And if those verify in general, you could rest assured that there will be some areas that are going to pick up 50% more than that, or maybe even double that over the next 10 days. So it's going to be really important to determine and decide whether, it's going to be really important to figure out which model's got the right attitude here as far as the weather going forward. For my area, I just want to reiterate, we'll come back to the GFS, and we'll take a look again at the surface map, at least for the short range. Okay, so we get this rain out of the way. You can see there's nice high builds in, so the weather's going to be great through into Saturday. We're going to see temperatures that are going to be in the upper 70s and low 80s for Wednesday, 70s for Thursday, probably into the low and mid 80s on Friday, and Saturday could be very warm with a west or a west-southwest wind. We could see temperatures well up into the 80s to perhaps near 90 in areas from the mid-Atlantic on up into southern New England until this backdoor front makes it on through. And then, of course, all depending on what's going to happen. The National Hurricane Center, by the way, did increase its forecast probability for development in the days 3, 4, and 5 to 40% from 20% in its morning special tropical weather outlook that it issued at 8 a.m. And they will be issuing a new tropical weather outlook tonight at 8 p.m. I'm thinking they probably won't say too much different from what they have, but you never know. Tyler Knapp, thank you so much for hitting Super Chat tonight. Really appreciate it greatly. Thank you. Okay, I'm on the board with you guys now, so just give me 1 second here. And, okay, thanks, Timothy. It was hidden. That was my fault. I'm really sorry about that. Again, when you're trying to manage all this stuff on the switcher, switching all these maps around, it can get very, very confusing. And got to keep multiple windows open and that kind of thing. So I apologize to everybody for it. But the rest of that, I know you were at the top. Aaron Raybear, I'm sorry, is that Raybear or Raybear? Tropical weather has always been the most interesting part of meteorology to me. It is quite fascinating, I have to admit. It's intriguing. A lot of times you think you're going to see something develop and it doesn't. Then there's other times when you think something you see something it's not going to develop and it does. It can be quite challenging. And then you have all sorts of odd factors that you don't see in in normal times when you're dealing with, dust off the Sahara Desert that comes off, and that tends to impede development of systems that are moving off the African coast, and you can actually see the dust on the signatures on the satellite. When we get to that time of the season, when we get into August and September, and the Cape Verde disturbances become front and center with the new GOES 16, we'll be able to see that very, very well. And forecasting, the Hurricane Center forecasters will tell you that intensity is like the hardest thing for them to forecast. It showed up last year with these Category 5s where sometimes they sort of take on a world of their own when they're intensifying, and they intensify far more than what models are showing. I'm glad you like the paint box, by the way, Timothy. I'm going to, when I used to do the videos at first, and I was doing them where I was pre-taping them, so I was able to draw. But now that I'm able to bring the paint box up and do that, I do like to draw rather than just simply describe what's on the map. If I can, if I can mark off what a trough is, then you can visually see where it is. And those of you who perhaps are new to this and just starting to learn, this is becomes much easier for you to understand. You saw a meteorologist, Israel from Alabama. Euro rains next 10 days, and 5 to 8 on the coast and 10 to 12 inches inland. Yeah, that's every bit. That is correct. And judging from past experience with these tropical systems, you probably will have some local amounts that could wind up being 50 to 100% higher than what the models are forecasting. But again, we have to first determine, where is this? How's this all going to play out? I think the rain happens because of the structure of the upper air. The rain is the biggest deal here, and you're going to get a good chunk of that rain, regardless of whether this system develops into any kind of named storm or a subtropical depression or a tropical depression, whatever that is. I think that's the less important part of this equation, and it's the tropical moisture and the almost endless flow of tropical moisture coming in that'll be a problem for the southeast, for the Gulf states, and for Florida, unless it winds up being too far west, in which case the mainland of Florida will get less. The Panhandle will wind up getting much more. Dapper Manatee 64, is there a severe weather threat for the Great Lakes, Dakotas region from Thursday to Saturday? Okay, let me see. I do have the Day 2 outlook, which at least will show us tomorrow. And we'll bring that up. And here it is. So here's your Day 2 outlook. Marginal risk of severe weather for the Dakotas, for eastern Montana, Wyoming, down through Nebraska, and all the way into West Texas. You can see, by the way, the impact of the dry air in the east for Wednesday, and then also for Thursday. I'll check off screen here for Thursday and Friday. I won't have time to bring the map up for you. Let's see. Let's go. They only have a marginal risk on Thursday for eastern North and eastern South Dakota and western Minnesota, at least at the moment. But I will tell you, at least over the last couple of weeks, they've had to upgrade those risk areas as we've come, closer to real time. So I wouldn't be surprised at all to see those areas get upgraded to where there's somebody showing at least a slight risk of severe weather for Thursday and possibly even for Friday. I don't think Tyler Knepp, I honestly don't think, look, if this winds up intensifying into a depression or a tropical storm, maybe you'll get something that's on the order of a weak tropical storm, 40 or 45 miles an hour. Again, I'm openly speculating here. We don't even know that it's even going to get to that point. But I can't. From what I'm seeing, I can't imagine it getting much beyond that. Stranger things have happened, obviously, but I don't see it getting much beyond weak tropical storm status. I think that would be the maximum extent of it. And Of course, as I've said repeatedly, the wind is not going to be a big factor here. This is really, rain is going to be front and center with regards to all this. All right, I think we're going to call it a day. Raymond, watch Saturday when that front drops down from upstate New York. Maybe that, right now, the predictability is too low for them, so they're not even, they don't have anything up for Saturday or for Saturday for the front that's dropping down from through upstate New York and New England. But I can envision there being maybe some stronger thunderstorms with that front when it comes southward. But why don't we evaluate that over the next day or two? All right, folks, let's call it a night at this point. Thank you very much for being here. The Joe and Joe Show, the Joe Rayo, Joe Cioffi, Joe and Joe Weather Show on Facebook tonight at 9:15. I didn't get a chance to upload it last night to the Facebook library, but I will do so tonight. And we'll look at all this again and see if we'll have a new update from the National Hurricane Center at that point. I'll upload the show to the video library. Hopefully I can do it before 10 o'clock. Otherwise, it may have to wait until about a little bit before midnight. But I'll definitely get it in there for those of you who want to see it. And I appreciate that you folks like it enough that some of you have been asking about it. I try to put it up in the video library on a daily basis, but sometimes my schedule's got me to the point where I can't always get around to it. And other than that, really not too much going on. Those of you, if you'd like, I just want to mention there's a link to Amazon on the descriptor to this video and on the live stream. If you shop on Amazon and you do it through my link, it's a great way to support my channel. Amazon gives me a little bit of coin for you bringing them your business, and it doesn't cost you a cent. You get your stuff, and like I said, it's a great way to support my channel, but by no means is anyone obligated to do so. I just wanted to add that disclaimer. Okay, have a great rest of your day. We will see you tomorrow. And by the way, as we get toward the end of the week, if conditions warrant, we will jump on and do live streams at other times of the day if it turns out that this system starts to develop and becomes an issue as we get into the weekend. Have a good rest of your Tuesday. We will see you tomorrow.